Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Catalyst Change Conversation Session 6. For those who are new to us, the Catalyst Conversation is part of the Catalyzing Change in Chemical Sciences project, exploring representation, belonging, and career development within the sciences. My name is Yara, and I am a part of the project team here at Salford, and I will be with you today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today's discussion brings together three speakers who will reflect on navigating identity, research environments, and career progression across academia and beyond. And we will be delighted. We are delighted to welcome Dr. Idil Ismail, a postdoctoral fellow in Cambridge. Her work sites at the instruction of computational chemistry and research innovation, and she has been actively involved in advancing representation within STEM environments. And also we will have Dr. Henry is a chartered scientist and teaching fellow in biomedicine department at the University of Salford. His work spans molecular bioscience and biotechnology alongside a strong commitment to monitoring and supporting emerging scientists. And also we will have Dr. Rachael. She is a lecturer in biomedicine at the University of Salford with expertise in medicinal chemistry and translational research. Her academic journey spans South Africa and the UK, bringing a global perspective to research and teaching. Please feel free to use the chat throughout the session and share your thoughts and reflection about this session today. We will return to them at the end of the session. So thank you for being here with us, and it's over to you, Adele.
Yeah, hi. I hope you can hear me quite well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's really nice to be invited to this. Actually, Salford was my undergraduate institution, as you can, I should probably know by now. And yes, so today I'm going to be talking about my career journey, or specifically through academia and all the different places I've worked, and the different areas of science I've also worked in. From this schematic at the bottom, you can probably see I've lived in quite a few cities. So you can hopefully see kind of the changing landscape of my academic journey, kind of alongside me changing different cities and so on. Right. Apologies, I don't quite know how to change the slide. Yara? Hi, Yara. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yara, can I just quickly get your technical help? I'm not sure I'm able to change the slides, or rather there's a delay, shall I say, as I'm doing this. Yeah. You're muted.
If you just go to the screen and if you just move your mouse, you should be able to switch between your slides.
Okay. I don't see any kind of arrows that would tell me how to do that. Is there? Apologies. Yeah.
Did you see it?
No, there's no arrows that I can click, or anything that kind of suggests that I can switch between slides. Whereabouts on the screen am I supposed to look?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just say it when I need to change slides. Okay, so keep it at this, and then.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. So next slide. Yes. Right. So when I first, apologies about that. When I first shared my title. Actually, I was working at a different institution, so that's why I initially said from Birmingham to ETH. Anyway, right, okay, so this is a little bit what you can see on the screen of my family, kind of academic family tree, if you like, all the different places I've worked, all the different mentors I've had. And you can probably also see the shift in disciplines as well. So starting, of course, at the University of Salford, I did my BSc in biochemistry. So that was back in 2018 now when I finished. And then I moved to the University of Warwick to pursue my master's in computational chemistry. And then went on to do a postgraduate diploma and a PhD there as well. And shortly after I finished that, I moved on to ETH Zurich, which is kind of a science-based institution in Zurich, Switzerland. And I did my first postdoc there in computational chemistry. And then most recently this year, I started my new role at EMBL-EBI, which is the European Bioinformatics Institute over in Hingston in Cambridgeshire. And there I'm also working as a computational chemist. Okay. Yes, so going back to my Salford days, it's quite nice actually. So my biochemistry journey kind of started actually back in Salford. It just so happened that I was quite lucky. Sorry, previous slide. So it just so happened that back in 2016 is actually when Dr. Anna Akinshina started at the university, which was really, really fruitful for me because I just happened to see a research paper that she'd published recently, and I contacted her, and I was then able to actually go on to do a research project in my final year with her. So that was my first kind of foray into biomolecular simulations. So we looked at simulating small aromatic molecules and looking at their aggregation in various solvents to be used as, well, hopefully to be used as topical creams and drug delivery and that sort of a thing. So it was really nice actually working on that because I don't know if the previous years actually had a computational project that students could do. So Anna was an amazing mentor, and to this day, you know, we're still in touch. It's why I'm here. So that was a really nice project. You know, during my time there, I also got into some interesting science communication. I don't know if Dr. Steve Rossington is still there, but he was also an amazing mentor. Through that science communication things that I got involved in. I also worked in the Saturday Chemistry Club. I hope that's still running. And we even got involved in some entrepreneurship. So we actually started a small chemical synthesis business right in the lab. So the picture you can see at the bottom there is in the labs that you guys work in. So that was all through kind of having some really amazing mentors while I was at Salford, actually, getting involved in things beyond what we actually did in our undergrad. Okay, next slide. Right, okay, so then I went to Warwick. This slide might be a little bit confusing. I wish I put some text there, but I'll talk you through it. So this is when I really got into, you know, some really detailed computational chemistry. The main project I worked on as part of my PhD was in the field of automating reaction discovery. So if you kind of sort of think back to, if you think about sort of traditional experimental chemistry and how you might go from proposing chemical reaction mechanisms, testing them in the lab, and then sort of studying it that way, computationally we looked at things a little bit differently. So we set up, the project really involved some method development of developing algorithms by which we can auto-propose reaction mechanisms by sort of defining a set of reactants and a set of products, and then allowing that sort of algorithm to kind of figure out the different mechanistic pathways that you can take to get to that. I won't go into too many details, but kind of rather than looking at it as a series of pushing arrows, we kind of looked at chemical reactions as matrix transformations. So if you can see at the top right corner there, these little graphs, these kind of show you how bonds break and bonds form, and that's kind of how we look at chemical reactions. The interesting thing about it is that we can actually look at some really interesting chemistry that we wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So if you look at the bottom left corner here, we were looking at, for example, benzene formation in the interstellar medium. Now that's obviously an environment that you don't have direct access to. So we were actually quite, it was quite interesting to find that the algorithm that we developed was actually able to predict literature verified mechanisms for benzene formation. So this mechanism labeled A there was already sort of found in literature, and then we kind of validated that with our method as well. So that kind of gave us some hope in being able to actually study all sorts of interesting chemistries that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see in the lab. And then yes, so as part of my research project, I also got into some machine learning. I used machine learning specifically for predicting the kinetics of the reaction mechanisms, and that was the core part of my second part of my PhD. It was quite nice to get involved in that as well. Next slide. Okay, so I mean, the point of this webinar is really not just to talk about the work I do. I mean, I can give you any of the research presentations I've given in the past, but really kind of talking about what you do alongside your research as well. So kind of building on from some of the science communication things I worked on during my Salford days. During the first lockdown, I actually got to work on some other science communication projects. So, for example, we worked on a podcast series all about computational sciences, not just computational chemistry, but computational physics, because these are areas of science that until you get into it at your postgraduate level, people just don't know so much about it. I think things are changing now, but definitely when I started, it wasn't so much information or knowledge about it. So if any of you are interested in podcasts and science, if you watch anything like the Infinite Monkey Cage or Live Scientific by Jim Al-Khalili, which I, by the way, highly recommend, you can see it's really interesting learning about people's scientific careers and their journeys. And so as part of this podcast, we interviewed a bunch of academics about their journey into science. So, kind of highlight that these things are not always linear. Quite often people start in very different areas, very much the same as I did. So that was quite nice. And from those discussions, actually, we had some interesting feedback about, well, what could people do if they want to start in this area themselves? So if an undergraduate student is working in, I don't know, zoology, right, let's say, and they want to get into computational sciences, what sort of information is there out there for them to get started in this field? And so from that we actually developed a seminar series. So I led this seminar series and asked a bunch of colleagues at both my university and other universities as well to each kind of give a talk about their own specific subject fields in a very kind of introductory manner. And that was quite nice, actually, quite popular. It was more popular live. And then we later posted these to YouTube. And yes, and so kind of building on from that, we ended up actually publishing a tutorial paper. And this was quite nice because it was a student-led publication. Whilst most of us have experience in publishing papers, I think this was quite a nice opportunity where I was able to be the corresponding author on that and actually work on it with my colleagues and friends, and everyone kind of chipping in their own areas of their own knowledge and areas of interest in computational science. Someone who's just getting started. So that the intention behind this was to kind of give undergraduates some information about where they can get started, not necessarily learn it, but tools and signposting links and that sort of a thing. Right. Okay. So in addition to that, this webinar wouldn't exist if representation was better, right? So we know that representation matters, and I'm sure many of you have seen the report by the RSC a few years ago about the reality of representation in chemistry, particularly for BAME students and academics and so on. Right. So off the back of that, I had some really wonderful friends and colleagues during my PhD who were actually willing to kind of come together and put together some initiatives, because sometimes when these resources and things don't exist, it's really up to you to create them, and I think that's important to take into consideration. So from that report, if any of you have actually read that in detail, you might realize that, or maybe just from this very first graph there, you can see that at the professor level, they've basically put it at 0 professors in the UK are from Black background, right? Which is not the case, actually. There's 1 professor. I mean, that's not a great statistic, but there is 1 professor, and they kind of said that it's 0%. And, we didn't feel too positive about that. And so back in 2022, we put together a conference called Project Invisible, which a lot of students were able to partake in. And we also invited Professor Robert Makgae, who's the professor in question, to that webinar that we did as well. In addition to, oh, sorry, I haven't finished quite yet. Previous slide. Yes, so in addition to that, a wonderful friend of mine called Maria Kariuki set up the Warwick Black Chemistry Society, which I was able to help out with. It's really nice to actually see that this society has recently grown into the Warwick Black STEM Society, where the current students actually set up initiatives to get local high school students involved in chemistry, specifically, from BAME backgrounds, and kind of, be that representation that they know doesn't really exist in a big way. So, rather than, thinking about, well, that representation doesn't exist. Okay, but what can I do about it? What in some small way can I do to contribute to that? I think that was a really, really fruitful project to be part of. And then sort of, most of my PhD was unfortunately during the COVID lockdown, so we didn't have much of that in-person contact, and so it's even easier to miss that representation. And so for that, we had the Network for Ethnic Minority Postgraduate Students, which I led, and this was another kind of initiative that we created so that we can have postgraduates from different research departments come together, just to have a kind of nice coffee break, and we ran a series of book club meetings and things of that nature to kind of discuss any, just to kind of create that sort of community that didn't exist before, because it's very easy to get siloed into your different areas of research, and it's through that you're able to actually see there are more of us than you might have thought. Okay, so so moving on to my Zurich days, which are now over. So yes, this is so I then moved to, like I said, ETH in Zurich as a postdoc shortly after I finished my PhD. There I got to work on a myriad of different interesting projects. So one of the projects I worked on was enzyme engineering, and this was quite nice because it kind of made me feel, it kind of drew me back to my biochemistry days back at Salford. I hadn't really thought about or worked in biology for a while, but then be able to apply computational chemistry towards that was quite nice. So that project was all about trying to see if we can engineer more catalytically efficient enzymes by directly mutating key amino acid residues in that complex. And then I also worked, oops, sorry, previous slide. I also worked on another project for reaction yield prediction. This was nice because this kind of built on from my PhD, where I also used machine learning to predict activation barriers of chemical reactions, except now I was looking at predicting chemical reaction yields based on a series of, how can I best describe? Based on the the reaction components. So, for example, for a given solvent and base and catalyst and reactants, if you then sort of take their topological structures based on that, we were predicting chemical reaction yields. But yes, so I mean, you could maybe have a look at that picture at the top. That's actually the department photo for the Department of Chemistry, and perhaps you can see a common theme that the diversity landscape in Switzerland isn't all that different to what it is here in the UK. Right, but in the midst of that, during my time in Zurich, for any of you who've lived in or been to Switzerland might know that on a Sunday, everything is pretty much closed. And when I say closed, I mean including supermarkets. And so that kind of leaves you a lot of time to do outdoor activities. And, with the Alps on your doorstep and countless lakes to visit, you will definitely have your fair share of adventurous activities and hiking and so on. So that was a really nice time that I had there. Yes, and so now this year I've moved on to EMBL-EBI, so that's the European Bioinformatics Institute in Cambridge, which is a really nice place to work, actually, because it kind of sits in a nice, happy middle ground between industry and academia. So you get that really nice time, you get that time to do, fully immerse yourself in research and collaborations and so on. Minus teaching commitments and pressure to publish and so on. So it kind of gives you slightly more in-depth focus time for your research. One of the things I also enjoy actually about working here is that it's incredibly diverse. I mean, you can name any nationality and you'll find people from there working at this institute. So yes, it's a nice place to work. I'm now working at the intersection of sort of chemistry, biology, and data science, which is it's nice to see how everything that you've kind of studied and worked in can kind of come together in this for this new job. So yeah. Yeah, okay, so in terms of what I'm working on is I'm working in an area called pattern mining. So this is kind of with the applications for drug discovery, coming up with, automated, basically coming up with an automated pipeline involving natural language processing to find interesting drug molecules and bioactivity data, and creating a usable database for both industry and academia. The thing I particularly enjoy about this project so far is that, unlike previous research projects, this is something that has a definitive and clear usage. So after my 3-year fellowship there, you create a product that I already know that companies are interested in and academia will actually use. So it's a nice shift back into kind of method development, but also in research tool and research infrastructure development. So I kind of wanted to highlight different areas and different skill sets that could be useful down the line that you didn't think whilst you were working on these previous projects. Yes. Okay. To summarize, so if I was to kind of give anyone any sort of advice, first and foremost would be you don't need to have everything figured out early on. Often what you end up working in is quite incremental. I started in biochemistry and now ended up in computational chemistry, but I also worked in computational physics and bioinformatics, and these things can kind of keep coming around. These skills that you learn that will always be useful at some point, and you never know when, right? So the important things are to stay curious, right? Be open to crossing disciplines, because this is going to be ever more important as you progress through different careers. You'll see and find a supportive network of people and mentors. I think I was quite lucky to have that with just some of the mentors I named back at Salford, actually, who I'm still in touch with today. So yeah, but you know, science is very interdisciplinary. There are many different ways and different places you can find your place in it. That's just something to take into consideration. Right. So thanks for listening. And
thank you, Idil, for your presentation. We will get back to you in the discussion part. And now we want to invite Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Can you hear
It's
me?
over to you.
Yeah, Rachael, can you hear me? Because I can't get the sound back. If I can get it on the chat or something.
Okay. Are you able to switch?
I can see you moving, but I can't hear if you can hear me or not. Okay, I got the thumbs up from Jelka, so I'll continue then talking. So I have titled my talk, which is going to be a very short talk, The Road That Fought Back, and I Fought Harder. And it will be clear as I start talking why I have titled this in this way. So just to start off, I am Dr. Rachael Makgae. I am a lecturer here in the University of Salford. Next slide. Yeah, I have these buildings, and if you see, it's just buildings that have no meaning behind them. But then as I'm talking through, you'll get to understand why this building have some importance in my life. So the building that is looking, I don't know, the Peel building is actually maroon or what, is actually the Peel building. And I don't know if you guys can see where my pointer is. And that's actually my office where I am sitting in today. And then I have the building of the University of Manchester. And I have a building of the Witwatersrand University of Wit in South Africa. And I have a building of Rhodes University in South Africa as well. Probably I have to start by saying that I am South African, then it will make sense why this building in the next slide, Jelka. Right, so I started my career trajectory by doing a BSc with honors. It was a 4-year degree at Rhodes University in South Africa. I then went on to do my master's by research, particularly focusing in medicinal chemistry. And at that point, I was at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg in South Africa as well. And then I moved on to do my PhD in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences at the University of Manchester. And then I stayed in the University of Manchester to do my postdoc. And then following my postdoc from the University of Manchester, I moved to Salford as a teaching fellow. And then I was promoted or progressed to being a lecturer. Now, when I'm saying all of this, it sounds like an easy pathway. It started, and this is where I am currently at. But what you don't see in this is the struggle that came with it and the dedication that came with me being where I am now. Just to give you a background, so I come from a small town in Durban in South Africa. And I had to move to Rhodes University. So if you know about South Africa, it is what we call a rainbow nation. We're very much diverse. But what was happening at Rhodes before our time is Rhodes University used to be a university strictly for white students, and no Black students were allowed to go to the university for some time. Having to transition from a small town in Durban, going to a place where it has a history of not allowing Black students to go in it, came with second guessing myself. Can I actually go there? Do I really want to go there? Would I fit in there? And I went in there, and then when I was there, that thought still stayed with me. Do I belong here? Did I make the right decision? How many of us are here? And I looking around, do I see someone that looks like me in this space? But then irrespective of those, because there were some students, there were Black students, there were Black community then, it didn't matter how I got there. It didn't matter whether now I feel like I belong or I do not belong. While I was there, I had to show up. I had to do the work, right? I had to dedicate myself to the studies because no one was going to give me any special treatment just because I feel like I do not belong in there. But then I showed up, I did the work, I committed to my studies, and I progressed to getting my honors with distinction then. I went to Vet University and I was transitioning now from Rhodes University to another university in Johannesburg, and I was starting my master's by research. Then I started thinking again, I did this at Rhodes. Do I belong here? Should I continue in this area? And then again, I had to push myself. I said, if I did it then, I can do it now. So then I'm going to continue and I'm going to do it and I'm going to perfect it in all ways possible. Then that was easy because it was just moving from one city to another city, from one university to another university. But then at some point, then I had to move from another continent, another country to another continent to come and do my PhD. I remember when I firstly came to the University of Manchester, and I had to give my first year talk, and I looked around in the hall, and I couldn't see someone that was looking like me in that hall. So there were doubts about, did I make the right decision? Should I be here? Do I deserve to be here? But then I had to show up. I had to do the work. I had to take ownership of what I'm doing to actually excel in what I'm doing and do the best research I could possibly do at the time. So I did that, and I completed my PhD. Then I stayed in the same university for my postdoc, and then I moved to Salford. When I came back to Salford, of course, the thoughts comes back, and it's not because of your doubts or your self-doubts. It's also because you have not seen someone like you before. You have not seen that part for people like you before. So you are redefining that path, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine, and you should do that. You should redefine your path to get far in life, because you can't just stay on a predetermined path for you. So when I came in here, I was very clear on my career trajectory and where I want to go and why do I have to do these kind of steps. And my idea was that I cannot do it for myself anymore. I should do it for someone like me. I should do it for people who think they are not meant for this. I should do it for people who think this is not for them, People like them, they don't get this kind of things. And I have to do well and excel in it so that those people can also see that if she can do it, then means I can do it as well. So next slide, Jacques. So while I am a lecturer here at Salford, I am also a program leader for the masters. I am also module leads for different modules. I am the student EDI, the directorate student EDI in Hans. And all I can say is for me from here is this is just the beginning to what I can achieve. If I've been able to go through everything that I've gone through and become who I am today, it means there's still more for me to move to. And why am I saying this to you guys? I'm saying this because there is a space for you. This world needs you. This world needs your skills, right? This world needs your personality, who you are, to make it better. And with everything that you come with every challenges that you face, just know that it's setting you up for a bigger vision, a bigger role that you'll play part of. And it will be irrespective of whether you are Black, you are female, you are coming from underrepresented background. It doesn't matter. As long as you show up, as long as you do the work, you'll be able to get far in life. You have to do the work. There's no substitute for hard work. You have to do it yourself. You have to show up at all times. But then the truth of the matter is this world needs you. This world needs you. There's a space for you in this world to excel, to do better, irrespective of where you are coming from. And I'll stop here, Jalka, for now, because I know we're running out of time, and I'll stay behind to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Rachel, for your time and presentation. And now we're gonna invite Henry. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for having me here. And so Rachel was talking about redefining things. So as we're gonna redefine my talk because of time. So my name is Henry. Ever smiling, ever happy, and yeah, I've just shown you a snapshot of my education background. PhD from Salford, previously going master's from University of Essex, and my bachelor's from Nigeria. Next slide, please. Okay, quick profile. Been involved in different organizations, spanning from the COVID year 2020 or even previous before that. And in all of these experiences, I've been able to acquire a vast range of skills, which I'm not going to bore you with reading off those bullet points underneath there. Next slide, please. So how did all this journey start? Next slide. Previous one, please. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I said I started my bachelor's in Nigeria in a university called Enugu State University of Science and Technology. One of the key things I want to point out from that is the resilience that that space teaches you. Imagine doing a science degree with minimal lab or practical section. So you have to like conceptualize theories by just imagining things, and the resilience to push through that because the education was affected by lots of industrial actions, and a lot of things didn't go according to plan because of those disruptions. But one thing I believe that I felt I built resilience in that context, and it helped me in future life where no matter the condition, you find a way to get through it. So after my bachelor's degree, I went to do a master's in biotechnology at the University of Essex, which is a very beautiful campus. And one of the things I take out from there was the research initiation. So I was opportunity to like meet lots of professors which are like top in their area. And those conversations sort of like drove a quest for research, which led to my pursuing a PhD in biological science. Yeah, which led to my pursuing a PhD in biological science at the University of Salford. So for my PhD research, I was working on bioprospecting novel enzymes, and that included making novel biocatalysts and enzyme engineering to enhance stability and activity. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's like the breakthrough, but sort of like the big career step was in March 2020 during COVID. So there was an invitation for people to join the the nationwide testing laboratory, which is it's called the Lighthouse Labs. So next slide. So I went to this space or this lab called the UK Biocenter. And in the UK Biocenter, we are an army of scientists, around 50 or 50-ish scientists working together which was quite interesting. COVID time, everyone was on lockdown, but you had this platform where you shared with different scientists from examples, students from lecturers, postdoc from Cambridge, Oxford, Manchester, and all of that working together. So again, it was work, but it was also like a conference because we all kept chatting about what your research was about, what you do, and all of that. So it was quite stimulating and quite interesting for me to like be able to talk to those guys and to learn what people do in Cambridge, for example, in Oxford, for example. Next slide. Okay, so moving on from that, I left Biocenter because I had to come back to my PhD project. So I got a role in ECLOG, one of the mobile testing labs, and as a lab supervisor. So I moved from being a lab scientist to being a lab supervisor, and that included training, people management, lab operation, was in charge of the shifts, and making sure that the lab operations was properly done and the testing was actually done perfectly. So the lab unfortunately closed down, and I moved to the other lighthouse lab, which is called the MDC, Medicine Discovery Catapult. And there I learned a lot about teamwork, obviously improving working collaboratively with other scientists. And I moved away from there to being a lab supervisor in another testing lab, which is called DAM Health. And again, similar to Ecolog, was more or less like training, lab ops, and all of that. And most recently, 3 years ago ish, I joined LGC Native Antigen Company, so a company down in Oxford, a town called Kimberton. And I was working as a research scientist. And one of the things I take away from that is the global perspective, because working for LGC, I worked on projects for AstraZeneca, Roche, and most of the big biopharma, and it kind of like helped you to see what direction these guys are going and what are the key drivers in the field. So I took those experiences back to academia because I feel like I enjoy teaching and training and also research. So again, it's sort of like incorporated in my current job, basically training people on how to get the job in industry, because I kind of like see how the industry guys think, and everyone or most guys in university journey would want to get a graduate job. So yeah, in Salford, I've been involved in a couple of roles, from being a lab demonstrator, being a lab technician, now currently working as a teaching fellow. Next slide, and the final one. Yes. A couple of things before I just end my talk would be, I've so these experiences have sort of like built me into a couple of things. Like, first of all, publications. I feel like for me, I feel publications are like one way to show that, or to not verify but validate whatever you've done. It's not just you thinking that you've done something impactful, but again, it's gone through other schemes which would show your visibility in the field. And that also ties to like conference presentation. Last year, I was in Rwanda, um, speaking about bioprospecting novel enzymes. And again, that's sort of like that recognition in your area that, okay, yeah, you're actually doing something impactful. And close to that is being recognized as a chartered scientist. And this status actually comes with CPD profile or record. So basically, you have to update, you have to show that you're continuously improving. So it's not just about I've got this, does it, but it's that continuous development, getting involved in things and showing that you can contribute value in things. And one of the other ways I showed that is outreach events. So a couple of years ago, I organized a workshop in Nigeria, which attracted over 50 students, including lecturers and postdoc. So in that space, showing visibility and training, I think that's one important thing, is that visibility, because you could do a lot of like great things, but how do you show the impact of that? So I get involved in like international projects and collaborative um, networks. So just to again prove that I'm actually competent in this. Next slide, and I think that will be the last one. Thank you for listening.
unmuted, so I'll invite the speakers. Hi, Del. Hi, Rachel. Yeah, so we have some questions from the audience. Shall we start with Rachel? Hi, Rachel. There is a question from Anna. What was the most difficult step or jump starting university in South Africa or move to the UK? Hello, Rachel. Is she there? We can move to Henry. Yeah. What advice can you give our students who are looking for a job in industry? It's also from Anna.
Yeah, so I would say reflect on your journey, because I think most times most students, they don't take time to reflect on how their experience within the academic journey fits into what the industry is asking for. Most times you do have it, but reflection helps you to translate that into a language that the industry would want to hear. For example, you're asking for protein purification experience, and you've got a couple of modules which have addressed that area. So thinking about translating your academic experiences into what the industry do have. You do have the experience, but just need to think about it.
Oh, okay. We're gonna get back to Rachel and display her question. It's from Anna. What was the most difficult step starting university in South Africa or move to the UK?
I guess it was easier when I was going for my PhD, right? Because I was going into the research part, and I already had a good foundation of the research. But what is very underestimated is leaving everything behind to start in a new place. You're leaving your family behind, you're leaving your loved ones behind, and you're coming into a new place. As much as you are driven by everything, that is something that is very much, underestimated into a toll it can take on someone having to transition from their home place to being in a different country. And of course, not only that, but the financial implications of that, coming from home to being away from home. How are you going to find that sense of belonging in a place where it's away from home?
I totally agree with you, because all the immigrants, I think they share that feeling. They just not leave everything behind. They leave some parts of themselves behind as well. So it would be easier there. So yeah. Now it's from me. So if anyone wants to comment for early career researchers navigating academic spaces today, what practical habit or mindset has helped you most? If anyone wants to answer that question.
I can take it all. So when you're entering the academic career trajectory, it's not an easy journey, right? And it is not a fast track journey as well. So you must go in understanding that it's not going to be an easy one. It does not only challenge you in terms of your skills, in terms of how good you are as a scientist, but then it actually challenges your character. Who are you as a person, right? What can you persevere? What can you do? What can you not do? And that challenge of who are you as a character is what builds you at the same time, because you're opening to a new you that you didn't even know existed before you got into this space. And again, getting into it, you must want to do it for a purpose that is bigger than yourself. It cannot be driven just by a purpose that is about you. It should be driven by a purpose that is bigger than yourself, because if it is, then each and every day you find the reasons more to do more, and also want to do more, because you are doing it not just for yourself, but then bigger than yourself.
Oh, thank you for your answer. I'll move to Idil and show her a question from Anna. How different was life? And I really wanted to know the answer as well. And approach to research in Switzerland compared to the UK.
Yes. So, I mean, as you probably know, I mean, research cultures change depending on the country in which you do it, which is why you're encouraged to do at least your first postdoc abroad, just to kind of get a feel of how people do research there. These are your collaborators, or maybe your competitors, if you want to see it that way. But yes, I mean, Switzerland, okay, so it's still in Europe, so you still have that aspect. But in my experience, things were definitely a lot more, lack of a better word, rigorous, maybe a little bit more rigid in terms of structures and things and the way things are run. If I think back to the lab I was part of, it was pretty much the same across other research labs. We also had a lot more teaching responsibilities than you do in the UK. So at the postdoc level, at least, it's more kind of optional if you want to partake in teaching. Whereas there it was, no, you have entire modules that you run effectively. So a lot more research responsibilities. Yes, and I think one other key thing that I didn't expect was also the range of projects that you'd be working on. So in most of the time, these things are kind of predefined when you work in research in the UK. I don't know if it has anything to do with the funding landscape, but certainly with access to more funding in Switzerland, that often means that you're thrown into different projects. So sometimes you're doing 3 completely different research projects all at the same time, and so that expectation of completing that is the same as if you were doing one project. So things are more resources maybe, but also more responsibilities. So it's something to think about.
How we've got a question from Akansha. How can chemistry PhD students better prepare for industry? Maybe Henry can answer that question.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I said before. It's more or less like reflecting on your skills and also taking opportunities. Personal development is not just within the academic walls. So there are other courses you could take on your own and get involved in, like placements and work experience opportunities. So yeah, I think the more you build your portfolio, the more you can compete for those roles effectively. So it's again building your portfolios and making it more impactful.
And this is another question from me to Henry as well. Looking back at your early career, what was the turning point that shaped your confidence and or direction?
I think for me, I would say COVID. I know I said it was like 2 different perspectives because I said yes to working in the COVID lab, which was a risk because no one knew anything about the virus. And I don't know, maybe if you've been, because we're kind of like the first cohort to work in the testing facility. So we're not sure like a lot about the risk assessment and all of that. So, but it worked out fine in that space. You could meet more people, and I feel like those interactions sort of like winded my mindset. And okay, yeah, actually, this is possible and that's possible. And I'll give an example with something different. So I got the Global Talent Visa. And one of the reasons why I felt I was successful was speaking to people. I mean, Rachel was one of the people that I spoke to about that, and a couple of my cousins that have got similar thing. But those interactions help you to see possibilities because sometimes on your own you can't necessarily like see a lot what's going on, but have those interactions with like industry experts like career fairs and the rest of them, have a chat with people working in the industry. What does it look like to work in this space? And then you kind of like start to build connections from what you already have and how do you translate that to what they are looking for.
All right, thank you. And we've got a question from Poria again to you. Do you think finding a job in industry is more challenging or in academia in our field? What's the unique challenges of each? I guess he means chemistry field.
Yeah, I think personally, I think academia is more challenging because sometimes they've got this set requirement. For example, if you're applying for a postdoc, you have to have a PhD. But industry, I think it's more or less like if you can show that you've done it before, or you're able to do it, or um, you've got some very interesting qualities. For example, most times it's not because you've got 100% of what they're asking for. One of the first job I applied for post PhD, I knew half of what they were doing. I didn't know the other half, but I got the offer regardless because the guy felt like I could pick up anything. I don't know why he thinks so, but yeah, sometimes it's not just about like if you might miss out some skills, but you might have a good personality and that would put you ahead of others. But academia sometimes is quite rigid in terms of like you need to have XYZ to be able to get that example PhD or publications and all of that. So personally, I think industry is easier to get a job. But yeah, that's my own thoughts though.
Thank you very much. Thanks. We're going to wrap up today. We are just on time. I would like to thank you again for being with us today and for sharing your valuable insights and experience today. And thank you to everyone who joined us in this session. And we look forward to welcoming you to our final session in 2 weeks' time, where we are continuing this series. Still, we have one session more. So yeah, see you all. Oh my God.